my influences, and these are some of my influences, not all of them. I always try to figure out where the people that I love came from. For instance, I'm a big Michael Brecker fan. He's an amazing saxophonist. So I dug into his history of the people that he loved and what made him Michael Brecker. So I do that with anybody that I love. I try to do the history on them, you know? So this is just for some of you to get to know me, some of my history, and I also want to hear your history if you are out there and you have anything to share. Feel free to share whatever you'd like. Anyway, so this is photo one up in the left-hand corner, and I am going to ask you, Scott, since you're out there, I hope you can still hear me while I'm looking at this picture. Up in the left-hand corner, that would be me as a youngster playing at our local ice skating rink. And we had a band called Andromeda, and I named it after seeing an old movie called The Andromeda Strain. And it was a science fiction movie. And I love science fiction stuff, so we named the band Andromeda. We had a blast playing shows around our little town. And we played at this ice skating rink, and it was really, really fun. And some of the stuff we played, well, you see to the right of me, that's Kiss. I think we did most of the Kiss Alive album. And I had platform shoes in our bass player. He did some of the Gene Simmons antics and that sort of stuff. We didn't have the makeup, but we loved them. And we did some Bachman-Turner Overdrive. So if you see that next picture, it says Not Fragile. That's the album cover. And we did that. And then Peter Frampton's another person I loved as a kid. I just thought he was awesome. Actually, and I still do. Peter Frampton. So that would be some early influences that were more on the rock end of things. Photo number two. These are influences that I had when I was a youngster. They weren't musical influences, but these were very important people to me. The first photo is number 21 from the Pittsburgh Pirates, Roberto Clemente, the great one. He was not only a tremendously talented baseball player, but he was a wonderful humanitarian who actually lost his life trying to help people. I know when that happened, I cried. Oh, I cried so hard. I was so sad. But I did get to see him play when I was young. My dad took me to Forbes Field when I was very young, and I got to see Clemente play live, so that was really cool. To the right of him is the wonderful baseball player, Ted Williams. And he was very scientific in his approach to batting. And I actually had a book when I was a kid called The Science of Hitting, I think it was called. And really disciplined. And so was Roberto. They were both really disciplined guys. So I learned that from them. And when I played baseball, I took it pretty seriously. And I tried to apply that to my music. And then Bruce Lee. I never did martial arts, but I always thought Bruce Lee was super cool, and he was very devoted to his art and his craft, and he was amazing. So those are some other early influences. They aren't musical influences, but very important to my development. Photo number 3, this person, Jack Seibel. He was an amazing musician, an educator, and he was really inspiring to me. When I was in 8th grade, Jack came to my 8th grade concert at the middle school and said, I want you to be in the stage band in high school next year, in your 9th grade year. So I said, yes, of course. And I showed up to the first rehearsal, and he could tell that I knew how to phrase, and I had a knack for improvising and making up solos. So he was throwing all kinds of stuff my way. And over the years of having him as a teacher, he was constantly encouraging me and inspiring me. And he's a good part of why I'm still a musician to this day. So Jack Seibel, and I know that he inspired thousands of other people as well. And we lost him very early. He passed away in my junior year of high school. So a great loss, but never forgotten, and grateful to have had him. I'm going to move on to photo 4. These are some of the early influences I had for like funk kind of music, funk stuff. James Brown, loved him. I mean, the horns, I love the rhythm guitar stuff, all the grooves. So I learned a lot by listening to James Brown. To the right, that's Earth, Wind, and Fire, and they're just amazing. To this day, fresh music. As soon as I put this stuff on, man, it sounds as fresh as the day I heard it. My wife and I take road trips. Earth, Wind, and Fire are always on the playlist, and they're amazing. So below, that would be Parliament Funkadelic, and to the right, that would be George Clinton. He's the founder, and just really funky groove stuff, you know, grooving hard. So that was a big influence for me. All right, gonna go to photo 5. These are some of the rock type groups that I loved. Up in the left-hand corner, that's the group Toto, known for their stellar musicianship, really, really excellent. They recorded for so many people. They were all session players. Steve Lukather, wonderful guitarist. Next to them, Journey with Neil Schon. And both Steve Lukather and Neil Schon had these qualities that I loved. So they were an influence. Even though I didn't like heavily copy them, I kind of took the vibe. Steve Lukather and Neil Schon could shred. I mean, they could play very fast and aggressive, but they also had these great senses of melody. So I would say that's what I took from those guys. Below in the left-hand corner, that's Paul Rodgers from Bad Company. And I loved Bad Company when I was a kid. And to this day, Paul Rodgers is one of my favorite all-time rock and roll singers. He's amazing. He still sounds amazing. Really incredible. To the right, Steely Dan. Love their intricacies and the session players that they hired. Very creative. Lots of cool chord changes. I believe Steve Lukather is the guy that called them adult chords. So they used a lot of adult chords and had great players all the way around. So heavily influenced by Steely Dan. Their guitar players, 3 I'll name right off the top. Larry Carlton, number 1. Jay Graydon, number 2. And then Denny Diaz played a lot with him, among other guys. And they were all great. Those guys did not use slouches. So very, very cool. Some other influences. And these guys are, I would call them more in the blues rock side of things. Up in the left-hand corner, Mr. Slow Hand himself, Eric Clapton. To the right, Jeff Beck, and I'm a giant Jeff Beck fan. Just love Jeff Beck. He gets the craziest sounds out of a guitar. He's really cool. Below those 2 guys are the Winter brothers, Johnny Winter and Edgar Winter. And those guys were really great musicians. Johnny Winter, really great rock and roll and blues guitarist and vocalist. And Edgar Winter, he could play keyboards, saxophone, sang really well. Just really talented. And of course, last night I did mention that Frankenstein's one of the coolest songs ever to me. When I hear it, it takes me back to my childhood. It's still like fresh for me. Photo 7 now. So these guys are more of my blues influences, okay? So I call this picture 3 Kings and a Collins. 3 Kings and a Collins. And I'm not talking about Phil Collins. I'm talking about Albert Collins. So we have on the left, top left, that's B.B. King and his guitar Lucille. Great singer, player, B.B. King. All these guys are so identifiable as soon as you hear them. To the right of B.B., that would be Albert King playing a Gibson Flying V guitar. And bottom left, that's Freddie King. And Freddie King was another wonderful vocalist, guitarist. To the right, that's Albert, and they called him the Iceman Collins. And I remember when I was younger, I played a song called Too Many Dirty Dishes. It's a great song. Too many dirty dishes for just us two. So it means that there's a little hanky-panky going on the side, and Albert Collins discovered it because there were too many dirty dishes. So a humorous take on a rough situation. So those are the some of my blues influences. Now, I'm going to include these folks with the blues people because these are two female musicians and vocalists that I love. Upper left-hand corner, the fabulous Aretha Franklin sang like crazy. Queen of Soul. But a lot of people don't know she was a fabulous piano player. She grew up in the church, and she can play like great gospel piano and accompany herself. Really cool stuff. On the right hand lower, that's Bonnie Raitt. I'm a big Bonnie Raitt fan for many reasons. She's a great singer, has such a cool tone in her voice, and also plays great guitar. Big fans of both of those folks. So I would say they were influential for me. I was on the female vocalist. Now, I'm going to go to male vocalists. All right. Gino Vanelli is up in the left-hand corner. That is an album called Brother to Brother. Super important album for me. Besides the fact that Gino Vanelli is an amazing musician and is still out there doing it and making amazing music, a lot of people think that he just fell off the face of the earth. Some people know him for I Just Want to Stop, that song that was a great song, but they don't think he went any further. But man, no, he's an artist. He's a tremendous artist. But there was a guitar player on that album that was super amazing. His name's Carlos Rios. And what I liked about him was I was a big Pat Martino fan. So Pat Martino is a blazing jazz guitarist from Philadelphia who I was fortunate enough to study with. And I heard this Brother to Brother album, and I heard this guy playing, and he was playing lines kind of like Pat Martino, but with a distorted sound, but had, awesome bending and vibrato and all that kind of stuff. And Carlos Rios. So Carlos Rios, if you look him up, great player. He went on to do a bunch of stuff, but he could still be Lionel Richie's music director. He was his music director for many years, but I don't know if he is at the moment, but he's an amazing musician, probably a nice guy. I've seen some interviews with him, but really inspirational for me because I listened to that album over and over and over, and it was vinyl, so I pretty much wore it out. To the right, the amazing Ray Charles. Can't say enough good about him. Just everything about the guy. When I hear Ray Charles, I can't help but smile because the guy is just so awesome. Below him, one of my all-time favorite vocalists. And again, some people know he is, some don't. Donny Hathaway. Some people may remember he did a duet with Roberta Flack called Where Is the Love? That's Donny Hathaway. But Donny Hathaway, my goodness, just a breathtaking vocalist and piano player. Died way too young. And I told people last night, make sure you go check out a Leon Russell song called Song for You. You can find it on YouTube. It's live. Him in front of a live audience, and it's breathtaking. Breathtaking. A Song for You, Donny Hathaway live. To the right, Stevie Wonder, who has written just so much incredible music. Guy can sing, plays just about every instrument. If you get a chance, there's a video of the making of Songs in the Key of Life. And Stevie Wonder was so cool because he played drums and everything on that. And he has a great sense of humor. And he's talking about, him playing drum. He goes, oh yeah, I was hitting the drums. I'm hitting the mics. I'm hitting everything. But he was just such a great musician. I always say that there's like music oozing out of every pore of that guy. He's so amazing. So the next photo, classical. So I love classical music, and I love all kinds of classical music. And every so often I change the radio station in my car, and I'll just go through a period. Like right now, since I'm near Youngstown, Ohio, I'm listening to Youngstown State University, and they have a classical show on. And I'm listening to all the music there, and it's just beautiful stuff. These are some of my classical influence, and then guitarists that are classical guitarists. So on the left, one of my favorite all-time composers, Johann Sebastian Bach. And to the right, the amazing Andres Segovia. I'd probably say he's the most famous classical guitarist there is. Below, there's a bunch of guys playing together. That's the Romero family, and they can all play like crazy. The Romeros. I actually saw them live when I was a kid. To the right is another guy, Julian Bream. He's just insanely good. So those are some classical guys that I think if you're interested in guitar or just music, period, check those people out because they're amazing at what they do for certain. So a lot of you know that I love jazz, and I love jazz guitar, and my father was a musician, and I heard this stuff when I was a kid, and I'm going to show you some of the guys that I grew up listening to and still listen to. On the left-hand side, upper corner, that's the great Wes Montgomery. And man, he influenced so many people. So many. Just incredible. Played with his thumb, did not use a guitar pick. It had a very unique approach, a unique sound because of that. His phrasing was so cool. He's one of those people you hear and you know right away who it is. So it's amazing. To his right is a really great guitar player, Grant Green. Grant Green was really super cool. And he was an influence, I would say. Both he and Wes Montgomery, I would say they were, and Kenny Burrell. I would believe that they were influences on George Benson, who's down in the lower right-hand corner. He's one of my favorites. In fact, that was my first concert as a kid, was seeing George Benson. But so we have Wes Montgomery, Grant Green. I used to listen to this funky Grant Green album. It was called Live at the Lighthouse, I think. And there was the old, was it the Stylistics? Anyway, he did an instrumental version that I just loved as a kid. Oh, by the way, I didn't tell people this last night, and I need to say this. Wes Montgomery, I used to make my mom play Wes Montgomery when I went to bed. I loved his playing when I was a young kid. And there was one particular, and it was probably one of the ones that the critics didn't like as much. He played pop tunes. It was called California Dreamin'. You know, California Dreaming by the Mamas and the Papas. And I remember that, and Windy, the song Windy, Who's Peeking Out from Under the Staircase. Everybody knows it's Windy, but he played instrumental versions of these, and I just loved it as a kid. I mean, I made her play it every single night. And by the way, after Grant Green, that's Kenny Burrell. Kenny Burrell is just super. He's still alive, thank God, and just an amazing musician and guitarist. And to the right, George Benson sings his butt off, plays his butt off. These guys are all, they're like the greats. Next round of guys. So continuing in the jazz vein, so Pat Martino is up in the upper left-hand corner. An amazing guitar player. Inspirational and on many levels. He came back from a major brain aneurysm and had to relearn how to play. And played for many years after that. I mean, I studied with him, and it was after the aneurysm. So it was really something. He's amazing. But anyway, I got to study with Pat. Great guy. I was really intimidated. I called him up for lessons, and he had the deepest voice. And he was like, "Hello." And I was like, Pat. And I told him who I was, and he said, "Yes, Tony." So great guy, just really cool. I'm so thankful I got to hang with him some. And I used to drive to Philadelphia and get some lessons from him. Over in the cool little area in Philadelphia, it was the Italian section where they had row houses and such. It was really neat. So to his right is another masterful player, Mr. Jim Hall. Probably doesn't get as much credit as he should because, not that he didn't have a great technique, because he had tremendous technique, but he wasn't one of those flashy guys. He was really melodic, very well thought out, very sensible, and masterful. He was masterful. I mean, I appreciate him. I think, again, it's like apples and oranges because all these guys are great. Below him, Joe Pass. I was fortunate to get to see him when I was a kid play with Oscar Peterson at Heinz Hall in Pittsburgh, and that was really cool. And Joe Pass was, again, one of the greatest to ever walk the earth. To his right, this guy, guitarists know who he is. I mean, many guitarists, not everybody. Alan Holdsworth, super genius, innovator. The guy, when he came around, man, nobody sounded like Alan Holdsworth. I mean, and still nobody sounds like him. He's inspired a lot of people, and my guitar player friends will know he made huge strides in the legato technique. And he was a super nice guy. I actually got to speak with him at a couple shows, and I spoke with him on the phone. He was as kind as the day is long. I will tell you this story. It was at Graffiti in Pittsburgh. And my dad was ill. And my dad and I used to teach a lot of people, so we would send people to Alan Holdsworth shows. We would tell all of our students, go see Alan Holdsworth. So he couldn't make that show, and Alan actually asked where he was. And I told him about it, him not feeling well. And don't you know that Alan Holdsworth called my father, this is when the payphones existed, called him from a payphone at the Pittsburgh airport the next day to check on him and see how he was doing. So that shows you the caliber of what kind of guy Alan Holdsworth was. So the next two people I'm going to show you are saxophone players, because I'm a guitar player, but I listen to everybody. So I learn from everybody. I mean, I can learn from a banjo player. I can learn from, I listen to everybody. So I'm heavily influenced, though, by saxophonists, piano players, and some other, trumpet players, stuff like that. Everybody, of course, bass players. I mean, I play bass too, so these are just a sampling of people that I love. I picked out some of the major people. So anyway, this next photo, on the left-hand side, that would be the great John Coltrane. One of the greatest. I don't like to say the greatest because everybody is it's apples and oranges. But I can tell you this. The guy next to him, Michael Brecker, he's one of my favorite all-time musicians, bar none. And he was heavily influenced by John Coltrane. And Michael Brecker can be heard all over the place. In fact, he's on so much pop stuff, pop and rock. He's on James Taylor stuff. He's on, when you get a chance, there's a great solo on, who did the song Candy? It's Like Candy. Funk group. I love them too, by the way. It's great. And it's in this funk, funk pop tune. And it's Michael Brecker. So anyway, Michael Brecker, John Coltrane, two other influences that are wonderful. So I'm going to move on. I have piano players. Okay. So all of these guys, insanely good. I mean, everybody I've mentioned, in my opinion. I mean, these are my opinions, of course. But they're all insanely good, all of them. And insanely great, probably, right? On the left-hand side, one of my favorite musicians, he doesn't get enough credit. I mean, the guy's played with all kinds of people. He can do a heavyweight jazz gig, and he can play with Steps Ahead, which was Mike Manieri, great vibes player. Michael Brecker was in that band. They had a bunch of different folks. Eddie Gomez at one time played bass. But anyway, Don Grolnick, he can play with people like that, but he was James Taylor's piano player for a long, long time. So he's just one of those guys that knows what to play, when to play, how to play, and a great composer. I love him. And he died, again, way too young. To the right of him, the great Chick Corea. Love him. Grew up listening to his stuff. Loved when the Electric Band came out. All those musicians were great. Dave Weckl playing drums. At the time, the first version of that band that I heard was Scott Henderson playing guitar as a beast, and John Patitucci playing bass, and I would say it was Eric Marienthal playing saxophone. But then Frank Gambale, the great Frank Gambale, took Scott Henderson's place. And also one of my friends, I'm friends with Jamie Glaser, who played with Jean-Luc Ponty. And Jamie's a great guy and a great player. And he also played with Chick Corea in the Electric Band for a little bit. Anyway, Chick Corea. Below Don Grolnick, that's Herbie Hancock. And who doesn't love Herbie Hancock? And he's another guy that like stayed with the times, and he moved on from straight ahead stuff and got into some funky stuff. And some people will remember the very robotic thing he did called Rocket. He was really influential. I did skip a photo, by the way. I'm going to get back to that after this because I skipped a photo with Herbie Hancock in it. To the right of him is the great Oscar Peterson. I mean, wow. Amazing. He's burning is an understatement. The guy had technique like you can't believe it, and it was soulful. I saw he and Joe Pass together, and it was an amazing concert, and thankful that I did. Okay, I'm going to go back to photo 13 because I skipped it. The reason I'm going back, that's Herbie Hancock again, top. That's an album called VSOP. Really important to me. There was straight ahead stuff on it, straight ahead jazz stuff on it, but it also had this portion that was funky. He had this band, and I think it was Herbie, a guy named Benny Maupin, Paul Jackson, not to be confused with Paul Jackson Jr., the guitar player. Paul Jackson played bass. I can't remember who played drums, maybe Mike Clark or somebody like that. Anyway, the guitar players. On the left, Ray Parker Jr. Some of you know him from I'm in Love with the Other Woman. Some of you know him from Ghostbusters. But Ray played with a lot of the jazz guys, and he's back into the smooth jazz thing. The combination of him and the other guy, his name's Wah Wah Watson, and that record was so important to me. I listened to it over and over and over. And if you get to hear it, there's a song called Hang Up Your Hang-Ups, and you'll hear some great funk rhythm guitar stuff. So I wanted to mention those guys because it was really important to me. And some people really don't know this about me, but I'm really a giant country fan. I love country music. I really do. And I love old school guys, especially. I like the new stuff too, but a lot of it to me sounds a bit like rock and roll. It sounds like pop and rock to me with, a banjo. Or not that it's not good. Don't flame me here. I'm just saying it doesn't have that traditional country thing like these guys. Willie Nelson, right? Willie, I love him. In fact, Willie is so cool in that guitar he has. He's played it for so many years, and he's worn this gigantic hole in his guitar. And what's cool about it, his acoustic guitar, and it's nylon string, it sounds different than every other nylon string guitar. I think it's just because of the hole, and his playing style, of course. It's in your hands as well. But his guitar, because of the giant hole he's worn in that guitar, it's kind of, it's really neat. So to the right, that's the fabulous George Jones, and below, that's Merle Haggard. And I got to tell you, I listened to Merle Haggard, and he always had really burning guitar players that played with him too. So I love those guys. And I have some country guitar players I want to show you. Chet Atkins. What am I going to say? Chet Atkins. He's Mr. Country Guitar. I mean, he was wonderful. In fact, if you get a chance, look up Chet Atkins, George Benson, and Earl Klugh. They played, I think it was called Soundstage when I was a kid, and I believe it's on the internet. It was on public television, and it was really great getting to hear the three of them play together. So it's out there on YouTube. To his right is a fabulous burnin' country player and a nice guy, Mr. Albert Lee. And you can find Albert Lee, besides playing country music, he played in Eric Clapton's live band. I'm not sure for what length of time, but he was definitely there. And tremendous, and he's really humble and sweet. I talked to him at the NAMM show years ago, and he was just as kind as could be, modest, but a tremendous talent. Below him is a guitar player that's also, oh, by the way, Albert Lee is from England. He's English. Below him in the color photo, that's another English guitar player. His name's Ray Flack. And I believe the first time I heard Ray Flack was on a Roseanne Cash album, and there was a song called Highway 40 Blues. And I heard the guitar player. I was like, holy moly, who is that? And it was Ray Flack. So if you get a chance, check him out. Now, to Ray Flack's left, this guy was amazing, and he could play everything pretty much. Rock and roll, rockabilly, country music, jazz. I mean, he went from doing all that country-ish stuff, and it was a really amazing hybrid picker. That's where you use a guitar pick and your fingers to do the picking at the same time. He was really tremendous at it. Anyway, and then he went from that to playing an album with Joey G. Francesco, who's a killer Hammond B3 organist playing jazz stuff. So that's Danny Gatton. Danny Gatton. If you get a chance, in fact, he's no longer with us as well, but an amazing, amazing player. Last night I was talking about the rock guys, and I didn't have a picture of him, but Gary Moore is one of my all-time favorite guitarists. And again, I tried to just gather what I loved about him. He had energy, and could play melody, and I mean, he tears stuff up. And if you get a chance, there's a clip of him doing a Roy Buchanan song called "The Messiah Will Come Again." That's on YouTube somewhere. You can find it. It's incredible, okay? Not that Roy Buchanan's version isn't incredible, because he's the writer and he played it originally. But Gary Moore just does his thing, man, and it's very inspiring and wonderful, so I wouldn't steer you wrong. So those are people that meant a lot to me, and of course I grew up in a musical family. My father, I had uncles that were musicians. My brother Victor played trumpet and some keyboards. So I kind of grew up with that stuff, and I'm thankful that I did, because I'm as excited about music today as I was when I first heard it.